It's really the spirit of the plant that you can feel, that you can work with as medicine.
Hello, plant people. Hello, my herbal friends. Welcome to another edition of Everything You Did Not Know About Herbalism here on Herbal Radio, brought to you, of course, by Mountain Rose Herbs. I am your host, Tommy Navarre. And speaking of Mountain Rose Herbs, we've got the next free herbalism project. It's happening, almost said April. Wow, this year is flying by. August 9th. It's happening August 9th in Seattle this time. So it's an in-person event in Seattle. We have about 500 spots, and we opened it up yesterday, and I think we're about halfway there as far as spots filling up. It's going to be something else, and I'm excited about it. And it's the first time that we've ever had the free herbalism project outside of Eugene, Oregon. So I'm happy about that. I'm thrilled to be bringing free herbalism to another place. And obviously we have our store there. We opened up about this time last year. And we're going to be up there kind of celebrating that and celebrating. I don't even know what number we're at with the free herbalism, maybe 25 or 30 at this point that we've had over the last 12, 14 years. It's really just been amazing. And this is going to be one of our best. So please, if you're in the Seattle area, you got to come check it out. And say hello to me. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be doing something, I don't know, working the door maybe. I'll have one of those little ropes, making sure you're on the list. No, I'm hoping that everyone that shows up is going to be able to attend. And again, it's free of charge, so it's take advantage of that. And something else that we're excited about is that we have a new Instagram page dedicated to the Herbal Radio. So herbal.radio. If you go to Instagram and come check that out. We're going to have sort of short clips from all the shows, and then we're going to have some behind the scenes fun stuff for everyone that you're not going to see anywhere else. And we'd love to just have a little engagement there. So please come and subscribe, like us, whatever you do on Instagram. I can't keep up with all the different social media platforms, but yeah, we're there, and it's going to be great. And today we had a great conversation with Sabrina Peraza, and I want to start by saying that I am not by nature a spiritual person. I'm a very science. I'm a very fact based, and I've got to kind of see it to believe it. And there's good and bad with that for me. But every once in a while, I like to be reminded that I don't know everything, and that it's okay to think outside the box a bit. And so I got to hang out with Sabrina, and so first off, she's the founder of Flora Farm. She's a medicinal herb farm and herbal apothecary in Port Angeles, Washington, and everything about her centers around wisdom and healing traditions of her ancestry, and really it's kind of to enculturate and enrich her farming practice, her medicine making, and her ceremonial practices, and she talks about it as being a way to honor her heritage while creating something meaningful to share with her community. So, and she's a very spiritual person, and the way that she talks about it in this conversation, it's so inviting and it's so real, and it made me really humble. It really, really did. And I was so excited to hang out with her. And I got to walk away from it feeling that, hope. I love that. I love when I get to walk away from these conversations feeling more hopeful than when I arrived. And that's definitely true for this conversation. But I also got to walk away with my eyes a little bit wider, a little bit more open, and that was awesome. That was really fantastic. So anyway, I hope that you get what I uh, was able to get out of this conversation as well. And yeah, so this is me having a wonderful talk with Sabrina Peraza.
Yeah, I think it's important to have just different approaches and different culturally relevant approaches and voices that are really contributing to the conversation
Sure.
of herbalism and farming and spirituality in general,
Hmm.
and really how all of those can intersect and become something so much more than we think that it can
Yeah.
be.
So where are you coming from? Where are you at right now?
I am currently on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State. And I farm and tend to land that is on the traditional territory of the Lower Elwha Sklallam tribe.
Mhm.
And I'm just so honored to be in this land and tending and doing this work here in
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah.
It's a really magical place. You know, we
Well,
have
it's
the ocean and the mountains in such
mhm.
a
Mhm.
short distance
Mhm.
that as an herbalist, it's just
Well,
incredible.
as anyone, right? I mean,
As anyone, yes, of
yeah,
course.
anyone that
Yeah,
gets to visit that place, there's something so special,
there
about
is.
it's really just really incredible and most beautiful one of the most beautiful places I've been in my entire life. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it has that calling to people that is really does feel magical. I mean, that's
Mhm.
kind of the only way that I can put it.
Yeah.
It's, whether you're recreating or um interested in science or farming or herbalism. It's so dynamic and
Mhm.
so incredibly diverse.
Mhm.
And it's really special too because, as far as the indigenous tribes to this land,
Mhm.
they're still on their traditional territories
Yes.
and it's still very much intact.
Right.
And that's something that is to be honored and highly respected,
Mhm.
and you can really, really feel that here in the land when, um, when you're out and connecting with it, that it still
Mhm.
has this very rooted and innate sense of, who it is and who the people who were,
Mhm.
originally from this land.
Right.
It's very special.
And I always think about it, and I know that there might be other um, we want to say here, like there might be other historical. I don't know if there's more other historical evidence, but I think about that if you believe that humans crossed the Bering Strait and came down into the U.S. or the American continent, that and that's what some science shows to be true. That what I always find amazing is that some of the earliest human activity on this continent was there. It's coming down through that area. So imagine that's like the cultural history of that area is incredible.
Yep,
Yeah.
it
So
truly is.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a very deep resonance that you can still feel and
Mhm.
still attune yourself to.
Right.
That is that is ancient.
Mhm.
That is ancient.
Right.
And so it's really, for me as an herbalist and as a farmer who is very dedicated to tending to this land and stewarding this medicine,
Mhm.
it's an attunement that really helps to guide and inform and enrich these practices
Yeah.
because there is such a living pulse and ancient pulse at that.
Yeah. How do you feel that? Like what is the some of the ways that in which you feel that when you're there?
Mm. So for me, I've always kind of had an inclination to be very receptive to, um, energies and entities that aren't necessarily, in a tangible form. And, it's a practice.
Mhm.
It's a practice and a attunement of the senses to otherworldly beings and sensations. And
Yeah.
so how that comes through is really through whisperings and
Mhm.
inspirations
Mhm.
for understanding how to, say, cultivate a particular plant or, um, harvest at a particular time or, maybe in medicine preparations, just trying something a little different.
Mm.
And, for instance, I really love doing distillations. I
Mhm.
have an alembic still, and that's a really deep part of my medicine making practice. And,
When you say
I
Olympic
love
sorry, when you say Olympic
an
still.
alembic
Oh,
still. It's a type
I thought
of
you said I'm
still.
sorry. I see. Never mind, this is me being ignorant, but I thought you said
Oh,
Olympic
no.
still, and I'm like, Olympic still? It was like in the Olympic Peninsula, and I'm trying to put that all together. Olympic still. Absolutely. I know what you're
Alembic
talking about. Yes.
still.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a very traditional form of a still
Okay.
that hasn't really changed for a very long time.
Okay.
So it's a style of a still.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And this is the one that you
Yeah.
prefer?
Yes. Yes, I do. Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and
And
so
I interrupted your train of thought. I do apologize.
it's okay. Um, so one of the ways that, um, hmm, I mean, in the process of distillation, I really am inspired by utilizing different water sources
Mhm.
around the Olympic Peninsula to distill and really bring in that resonance of that
Mhm.
ecosystem, not just through the plants, but through the waters. And through the active distillation, especially within the lens of the alchemical tradition, they have an understanding that as you're distilling a plant, you're really refining um, and attuning that medicine to the pure essence and pure spirit of the plant.
Mhm.
So it's lifting its spirit up and then it refines it and then it condenses it back into a liquid form
Mm.
in a form that you can utilize.
Mm.
And it it's really the spirit of the plant that you can feel, that
Mhm.
you can work with as medicine.
Mhm.
And of course, on a chemistry level, you are really bringing out a lot of those water soluble, oil soluble
Mhm.
constituents of the
Mhm.
plant as
Right.
well. So
Right.
you can look at it from a spiritual perspective to, a very, very scientific and chemistry based perspective.
Right. Right.
But it's all formed into one. And so
Mhm.
it's working on you in a lot of different levels. But I love it because, I have, like here, this is a pure distillation of the river Elwha, and I live by the river Elwha, and
Mhm.
um, that river spirit has been a really deep source of medicine and guidance for me as an individual and
Mhm.
as an herbalist. But I can spritz it, and you can really feel the song of the river.
Uh-huh.
And that's another way that these spirits come through is like
Yeah.
through songs. In indigenous culture, they call it catching songs. And I just love that because
Yeah.
it really resonates with me because it is a receptivity that is very um very specific to the land that you're on, to the waters that are of that land, to the plants and the rocks and the animals of that land. And when you are receptive and grounded, you can hear that and you can catch their songs. And that's another way that I really feel that I
Mhm.
am in right alignment and right relationality with this ecosystem is if I can hear their songs
So
and
so
just
so you're taking literal are you just going down and then taking water from the river and then sort of distilling it down and is that is same in the same process you would with like a plant? Is it the same sort of
exactly.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I'll use just that distilled water, and then I'll
Mhm.
also use that distilled water in the bases of other plant
Mhm.
preparations. So, whether I'm harvesting rose or mugwort or whatever it may be,
Mhm.
and it really adds like a context and a resonance to those preparations that
Yeah.
are unlike any other. And it's really exciting to me as a medicine maker because when you go and gather water, say from Elwha
Mhm.
in May, or if you go and gather that water in September,
Mhm.
you're going to get really, really different notes and really different attributes of that river.
Yeah.
If it's really early spring and the mountain runoff is running really strong, it's going to have a very particular energetic to it. Or, say in the fall when, the riverbanks have been running a little dry, you're gonna get kind of those deeper notes and it's all good and it's
Mm.
all medicine,
Yeah.
but it's just a really, really impactful way that I have been able to form deeper relationships with the river and with this ecosystem in general.
Hmm. So poetic. It's
Mm.
really yeah, it's very, I'm a very science-based person, so
Okay.
it's, and and it's not that I don't have hmm, it's not that I don't have an understanding of the spirituality side of life. It's just something that it's, maybe a little bit harder for me to see, or maybe
Sure.
I'm not even receptive enough, or I don't have enough reception for it, sort of approach, right? But it's so beautiful when others talk about it and they talk about that spirituality and they talk about that sort of again that poetic approach to life, where it doesn't always have to be so those ones and zeros, right, that have just become everything to us. Like now there's something that's
Sure.
different out there that it's okay to be receptive to that. And I really love your approach. That's though I never thought about the fact that you can distill a river water,
Sure.
and get some sort of
Yeah.
hydrosol or, a river essence from that. Of course you
Right.
can, of course. And thinking about things in a little bit of a different way. So, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. And, there's no right or wrong way to approach it. And, but for me personally, I think that that kind of over intellectualization and that approach to herbalism in particular
Mhm,
was really challenging for me. When there was a lot of years of self-study that I did um, for herbalism and for foraging before I decided, I'm going to become an herbalist and I'm
mhm,
going to, enroll in a herbal immersion program and stuff. And that program, I learned a lot from it, and I still access and utilize that information in my practice today. However, when I was when I was really starting, it was really difficult for me to feel competent when
mm,
approaching it in that way, especially
mm,
kind of, in that Eurocentric style of education where you're approaching it through memorization,
mhm,
through recitation, and, essentially somewhat of a regurgitation of
mhm.
another person's understanding of the plant.
Right.
And I just couldn't remember. Like, I just couldn't remember things that way.
Mhm, mhm,
And so I just felt, yeah, I felt incompetent. It's like,
mhm,
oh, I just, if I'm not able to remember all of that, then it means that I'm not a good herbalist, a quote
Yeah.
unquote good herbal,
Right.
whatever that means.
Right.
And so I really had to give myself the time and space to digest that information.
Yeah.
And, consequently, around that time, I was a couple years into this herbal immersion program. I was able to join a cohort that was really based around ancestral medicine and really invited this new chapter of my life of ceremony and connecting to my ancestors.
Mhm.
And it was through that I was really able to come to herbalism in a different way
Mm.
because I was able to understand how my ancestors and how my unique heritage
Mhm.
approached herbalism and
Yep.
approached, utilizing plants as medicine.
Yeah.
And I really needed that kind of cellular embodied memory and understanding to come through
Mhm.
for me to understand my unique way in which I connect to plants and
Yeah.
tend to plant.
Yeah.
And then, once I kind of got that cellular memory coming out and was able to really trust the wisdom in my hands and my bones that is the blessings and wisdoms of my ancestors,
Mhm.
then I was able to come back around to some more of my earlier education that was more, scientific and chemistry based. And it
Mhm.
was able to land in in a really different way for me because I had a deeper context and a
Mhm.
deeper understanding and a deeper approach that was very personal and very unique to me that I could then kind of layer on, what those bioactive profiles were or what the
Yeah.
Latin names were. And it gave me this very wide kind of range of understanding that I can dance between.
Mhm.
And so I I appreciate and honor both of those wisdom teachings and how it can really inform and create a very dynamic dialogue in how you can speak to plants and their medicine or an ecosystem in their medicine,
Mhm.
from the spiritual to the more scientific. 'Cause it's all just a dialogue,
Yeah.
and it helps to communicate with people on all ends of the spectrum
Mhm.
and really just enrich your own personal practice and
So
relationality with
yeah.
plants.
Yeah, so what is your approach as far as, let's say you discover a new plant.
Yeah.
What is your approach to that plant? I mean, how much of it is science? How much of it is your sort of spiritual connection to the plant, the historical connection to that plant, your ancestral connection to the plant? So,
Mm.
I'm curious of your approach.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's coming through for me first and foremost is I grew up in Southwest Washington
Mhm,
and I grew up um, in an area that was the traditional lands of the Kathlepodal tribe,
mhm.
which is a branch of um, the, hmm, I'm blanking on the name. Anyway, it's the Kathlepodal tribe. And they're not federally recognized, unfortunately, but
Mhm,
there was a traditional longhouse that was built, I believe it was in the early 2000s. And they would open up that longhouse to the people in the community. And there were really traditional ways in which the that settlement would connect with the land. And so there'd
mhm,
be, salmon that was drying on a rack over here. There'd be a fire. There'd
mhm,
be, cedar woven, um, textiles and regalia. And I remember as a young kid, there was a table that had teas that were steeping. And they were teas that were gathered from the land and teas that were utilized as medicine. And
Mhm.
that was kind of the first seed of understanding of how um, of a of how the native and indigenous peoples of this area were working with the land and harmonizing with the land. And particularly, I was really drawn to how they were utilizing plants as medicine. So really
Mhm.
that ethnobotanical concept of working with plants as medicine was something
Sure.
that from a really early age I was really inspired by.
Mhm.
And so you know, fast forward through my life and, when I'm in my early 20s and approaching herbalism and plant medicine in more of a intentional way, I guess,
Mhm.
that earlier touchstone of ethnobotanical medicine was something that really came back around and landed very sincerely and deeply within me. And so at the time, I was living up in the mountains and this off grid cabin. And, I'd walk out and there was all these like beautiful plants that were just right there. And just would go and even before I started foraging and stuff, would just go and sit with them and just remember that like, wow, these plants were utilized as medicine
Mm. Yeah.
by peoples that
Yeah.
have been here since time immemorable.
Mhm.
And so it was just so informative to me and gave me from a pretty early on point of my herbal path kind of this greater context and
Mhm.
greater historical understanding of
Mhm.
plants. And so, that along with my work and ceremonial practices with ancestral reverence is what gives me such a deep relationship and
Mhm.
deep purpose and understanding to this work.
Yeah.
And so that first and foremost is the most embodied way that I understand and practice herbalism. And then,
Mhm.
like I was saying, a little earlier, it's like from there, I can layer that in with more
Mm.
of the scientific
Yeah.
but I can't necessarily swap it initially.
Mhm.
Like I can't necessarily approach a plant from that conceptual, intellectualized, scientific way
Yeah.
and have it land. It just
So
won't
if
stick
you
in
were
my head.
so let's say valerian. We'll talk about valerian just for a second. So let's
Okay,
say you
lovely.
you know you know valerian as helps people with sleep, right? Something that
Yes.
people use
Mhm.
quite a bit. So knowing that going into, like, if you wanted to start studying that plant, that would be a hard approach for you. You would go in with sort of these preconceived notion about what the plant does for people or for you or whatever. Is that what you're kind of saying, that you really want to take that away in the beginning and really learn the plant and everything? I don't know if it's a spiritual way. Maybe it is. Maybe you can kind of answer that. But is it um, is you want to sit with the plant and understand the plant in your own way before applying what you've been taught scientifically?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. I mean, essentially, that's it. I mean, it's not to say that, coming in with some preconceived notions or understanding isn't
Mhm.
helpful. It's just not personal for me.
Mm.
It's just not, it's not a way in which I really can feel like I understand and can relate and to, especially if I am, doing herbal or intuitive healings for people, if I'm trying to kind of convey that through the mind first, it's not going to be as potent for them.
Mhm.
or their healing journey.
Mhm.
Like I've got to feel it within my bones and my heart first and experience that plant spirit coming through in those sessions.
Mhm.
And then that is an opportunity to get really curious about the plant. And because really if we're coming in with preconceived notions, it's kind of this very calcified view of the plants. And
Yes.
plants are living, they are dynamic, they are constantly changing, and they are constantly changing in relationship to us
Mhm.
through, when each season and each year, when we keep coming back to the same plant, it's going to reveal different attributes of itself
Mm.
to you. And it's going to
Yeah.
deepen your understanding and therefore your effectiveness of being able to work with that plant
Right.
for yourself and
Right.
and for others.
Yeah.
So it's like I want it to be able to stay dynamic and stay alive. So if I'm coming in with a preconceived notion, that's kind of like, yeah, it's just kind of calcified. It doesn't feel that it really invites the living dynamism of the plant and of that spirit
Mhm.
to evolve and to move.
Right. Well, I think that something interesting that I've found, talking with a lot of people on this podcast is that plants can have a different effect. They have, let's say, we'll go back to valerian. If valerian is known as this sleep agent or whatever, like this, helps with sleep. But some people, it can have sort of the opposite effect. It can actually be energizing for them. And I've always thought that was so that's sort of that's, what an interesting way that um, the plants can affect us, the efficacy
Right.
of the plant itself and how that, applies to the individual. And I really love your approach and I think it's something that is important for all, especially aspiring herbalists to kind of understand is that there is no, right or wrong, right? There's just no like, this is going to work or this isn't going to work kind of approach to
Right.
herbalism, that it's really on
Mhm.
an individual basis. And I
Yeah.
love your approach of spiritually connecting to the plant first and letting the plant, again, something that I've heard on this podcast many times is that the plant needs to speak to the person and that it will if you allow that. And I want to ask you a little bit about that as well because it's something that I've been thinking about recently. So I love the art of there an artist from Europe. His name is Francis Bacon. There's two Francis Bacon. This is the more modern Francis Bacon artist, and his paintings just really I connected with his paintings recently, and I say within the last like 4 or 5 years ago. He had a triptych that was at the Portland Museum of Art. My wife and I went to view this, and we got to sit in front of uh, this painting and I'm a fidgety by nature, and it's hard for me to sit and just be still. And my wife reminded me that this painting is only here for a limited amount of time. It was sold into private collections. It's never going to probably be seen again, and that you need to give it some time. And so I was able to sit with that painting, and it took me a little while because I felt really uncomfortable just sitting with this painting. And it took me a little while to get past that before it really started to speak to me. But it was only until my brain had gotten rid of all of that noise, right, that I was able to grab that signal that it was trying to send to me. And is that the same with plants with you?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, that faculty of receptivity and turning off the chatter of the brain
mm,
and touching into something that's a deeper and more sensational way of
yeah,
experiencing the
yeah,
world can be utilized for any practice, whether it's
yeah,
art or herbalism or, whatever it is, cooking. There's so many ways that we can touch into that and experience a more deeper understanding and really a more, yeah, I keep going back to like how we can receive those
Yeah.
blessings and those wisdoms of
Mhm.
our ancestors too,
Mm,
like
right,
through
right.
that type of deeper embodiment, that more stiller receptivity, and how that can guide us to, our gifts and in this life,
Yeah.
and the the ways that we can really honor our heritage and our ancestors through
Mhm.
those gifts.
Well,
So yeah, just like
well, and also how we expect them to shout above all the noise. That was the thing.
right.
Like,
It
I
doesn't work that way.
no, I expect this piece of art to be able to shout above all the demons that are
Right.
screaming and, I'm like, "No, no, 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 it's only going to, you know, it's gonna talk to you in a very soft voice."
It's subtle.
It's very
It's
subtle.
not
It's like
linear.
whisper, I think you said that
Yeah.
earlier, like the whisper, right? You were talking
Yeah.
it's like that's all it's gonna ever do, and so it's up to you
Right?
to sort of let go and just block out all that other so you can receive it. I think
Yes.
that's yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting to me and how of course, that's the connection that we need to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it connects us to our humanity, our deepest felt sense of what it is to be a human, and having a deeper, yeah, understanding and relationship to what's
Mhm.
around us.
Mhm.
And it is in that subtlety, and it is in that yeah, that very non-linear type of perception.
Right. And do you think and this is gonna be kind of maybe I don't know, it's a hard question to answer, but do you feel like that our ancestors had an easier time with that?
Oh, easier time
Well, I
with
just imagine
the
that so there's lots of studies that are being done right now on cortisol levels in, hunter-gatherer groups that are still in existence, and how the
okay.
cortisol levels in the
Mhm.
hunter-gatherer groups are incredibly low compared to you or I that live in this modern information, avalanche or, whatever you wanna call it that is happening where, they're just so much happier in this hunter-gatherer society because they don't have all of this coming at them at all times, and I'm not saying their life isn't hard, they don't have their hardships, of course they do, but I do feel like the studies that I'm seeing are really interesting in that sense, and I'm just curious if you think that I do feel like our ancestors had an easier time connecting to the plants or having an easier time connecting to the environment than we do because we choose not to live in that environment for the most part,
Mhm.
and I was curious your take on that.
I think that foundationally, that type of sense perception was revered
Mhm,
and valued
mhm,
and encouraged. And so, yes, I think that there was an easier access to that type of perception because it was somewhat normalized and celebrated.
yeah,
And, in our culture, we are so in our mind, and we value the intellectual understanding more so than the more subtle and so-called spiritual understanding of things. And
hmm,
so if you're trying to show up in a space that inherently is devaluing that deeper sense of knowing, that deeper understanding of subtlety,
mhm,
then it's going to be really hard to cultivate that. It's going to be really hard to celebrate that and
mhm,
to share that with people.
mhm,
And that's why it's so important to find communities in which really celebrate that within each other, and
yeah,
celebrate um that understanding and that capacity within each of us.
mhm. Yeah. Well, and again, I keep going back to this, and I know this was a very profound experience for me, but I keep going back to that sitting in front of that triptych, sitting in front of those paintings. The other thing that was happening was that it was in sort of this hallway, My wife and I were on these benches that were straight across from it, but people were passing in front of us and the number of people that would stop, look at it, and then say, "Oh yeah, that's cool," and then move on. Look, I'm not trying to say that what they're doing is wrong and what I was doing was right, but I
Right.
feel like, again, there wasn't a connection being made. It
Right.
was very much in that same, uh, what we as humans are experiencing right now, which is that 2 seconds. You get on your phone and you're flipping through Instagram or on Reddit or whatever it is, and you're literally just scrolling and you see something cool and you're like, "Oh, that's cool." And then you flip to the next one, "Oh, that's cool." And then it's just this constant feed, but not
Mhm.
really having an understanding of what you're actually looking at.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very much addicted to sensation.
Mhm.
We like it to be sensational. We like it to be new. We like it to be shiny.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's very it's becoming very uncommon for people to really sit with it and
Mhm,
let it digest.
mhm,
It takes a long time
mhm.
to really digest something
It's uncomfortable.
to the it's very uncomfortable,
Yes, right, right. Yeah. I think
especially at the beginning.
yeah. No,
And
exactly,
and
exactly.
it's if your nervous system and your mind is used to a constant movement and constant chatter,
Mhm.
you're gonna need to kind of detox yourself
Mhm. Yeah.
from that type of
Yep,
experiencing.
yep.
And it's a process that needs
Right.
to be undertaken with a lot of compassion and patience for yourself,
Mm,
but understanding that you're going to come into a place eventually where you'll be able to receive so much more
mhm,
from what's around you and deepen your connection and relationship to all that is around you, whether
mhm,
that's art or food or
mhm,
nature. It's really about just allowing yourself to sit and become a little bored or become a little uncomfortable and not trying to move yourself or to engage your senses through your phone or through whatever it is because it's uncomfortable,
mhm,
because it's hard to just sit.
mhm. I think this is so interesting for me, and I'm so glad that we're having this conversation because for me, it's having a better understanding around, the positivity, not that there's not always positivity in this, but like my positive connection to spirituality and what that can really do for me. And I think that
Right.
I'm realizing that that can make me be a little uncomfortable, which is great. That can make me sit in a place and be still and silent and allow that, you know, to
Mhm.
have that experience that I had with that painting with so many other things. It doesn't just have to be
Right.
that one painting, right? That I can have that connection with so many amazing things that are on this planet if I just force myself to do that. And that
Yeah, and
yeah.
and at first it may feel like forcing. It
Well, it
may
would be for
feel
me.
like
It would
really.
be. Yeah.
Yes.
It would. It would for sure.
And that's okay, yes. I mean, I've gotta force myself to do a lot of things too, but you eventually get into a place where it does feel more second natured,
Mm,
and it does become more of your innate way of perceiving and contextualizing your
mhm.
world.
Yeah.
And it's within those spaces of discomfort that we're able to really have some big breakthroughs
Mm,
in our physical and spiritual work.
mhm,
You got to kind of sit with that place
mhm.
in between where that tension lies of your comfort zone and your discomfort zone. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really that play is really where the work needs to be done.
Mhm,
And you can bring a lot of curiosity into that. And
mhm,
it can be more playful
mhm.
and it can also be really hard.
Right. Right. Well, I think you hit on something there with the, you know, again, talking about being uncomfortable, talking about um, understanding tension and the importance of tension, that it's okay to feel that. I
Mhm.
know myself, I do like, I love art that has tension. I love, I love seeing that. I love having, there's this, this idea that it's about to fall over or something, you see that, you see
Sure,
those
it's
pieces and
evocative.
yeah, and you're just like, "Oh my god."
Yeah,
That's so, but
sure.
such a wonderful, just as you go over the hill on the roller coaster, right? There's so much tension in that
Right.
moment, and I
Yeah, and
yeah.
not getting fixated on that tension because, the tension's just there to kind of lead you into something else.
Mhm.
Like, not getting stuck within that tension because
Right.
that's a whole other thing too. Like, you can, whether that's tension of the mind or tension of the body, like, we
Right.
don't want that
Right.
to be the place where we ultimately land.
Mhm.
We want that to just be a place where it's like a touchstone or a door
Mhm.
into something that's greater,
Yeah.
that's bigger, that's more um that has more depth to ourselves,
Mhm. Yeah,
to our
no.
experience.
Well, thank you for wow, I've learned so much, and I think we've been on for 40 minutes here. I'm like, okay, all right. I completely, I don't know. It's just like this way of looking at life that's a little bit different. Again, I'm such a science based, approach to everything that I do, and it's like, oh, that, it may not exactly be the right approach. There can be other.
It's not the wrong approach either.
Right,
It's just
right.
it's I think it's just about honoring that and
Hmm.
also honoring the other end of the spectrum
Hmm.
and dancing between those 2. If that's your initial way of approaching something, great, beautiful. And there's also other ways and deeper ways and more embodied ways of understanding it too.
Yeah.
And yeah, it all nothing is wrong or right.
Hmm.
It's just I think the experience of it and the understanding of it can go so much farther
Hmm.
and so much deeper than we could ever imagine
Hmm.
when we're willing to kind of play within those two
Hmm.
dynamics of the intelligence of the mind and the intelligence of the heart and
So
playing between those.
yeah, and where does others' expectations, where does that fall in this?
Right.
Because that's something that we all live with, right? We're all
Mhm.
constantly, I'm not saying
Yeah.
all, I think there are people out there that really maybe don't actually care what others think, but for the most part, most of us do. And
Yeah.
it's something that I know I struggle with constantly. This like,
Sure.
am I doing something that everybody am I gonna get all those likes?
Yeah.
How many
Right.
how many likes am I gonna get for this post? Like
Right.
that
And
kind
I've
of
gotta say it perfectly, and I've got to and that just going back to that was really my experience with herbalism at first
mhm,
because, you had to if you had to know the Latin binomials and you had to know every constituent and how it interplayed with your physiology, and I just it wasn't it wasn't how I was going to understand this body of work initially.
mhm,
And because I was other people's expectations of what it means to be a good herbalist.
mhm,
And it really crippled me
mhm,
at the beginning there.
yeah,
And now it's like I found my own way to it.
yeah,
And it really enriches the practice and gives me a vocabulary and a way to communicate with a wide range of people. But yeah, that expectation of what it means to be good or to be smart or to be successful, whatever that is. It's like
whatever that
you
is.
gotta
Yeah,
really stay humble and, like, stay aligned and in your center to
mm,
understand when you're starting to get kind of pulled in another direction.
yeah, yeah,
And that's kind of the it's an ongoing work,
and being
but
accepting of who you actually are. I mean,
yes.
I remember the first time I realized that memory was a talent, and that it's just not a talent that I have. I don't have that talent. Yeah, I can never be a medical doctor because I can't memorize, the medical books from page 1 to page whatever. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
That's not where my talents lie. But
Mhm.
before that, it just felt like, oh, I'm just not as smart as these other people who can memorize that. But again,
Sure.
intelligence is, you know, like it's something that's, it's a constant moving, flowing thing that you can't just say this person's intelligent and this person is not based on what, you know, some number, some IQ or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. So it
Some
was really
test.
some
Yeah.
test. Just take this test and you're either smart or you're
Yeah.
not smart, or maybe you're just kind of in the middle or something.
Right.
Everybody has their talents and everybody has what their passions and what they're good at. And maybe that's more of what it should be based on. But again, it was just like coming to that realization that, oh, wow, I don't have that talent for memory, but that's okay. And I think that can be the case for most anything that qualities out there that, we have deemed to be good qualities, right? You just may not
Right.
have that talent. Now, I think everybody has a talent to be kind. You just, I hope. It doesn't seem that way all the time, but everyone does. So don't say that you don't have the talent for being kind, because you do. You just got to do it.
Mhm.
But other than that, it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah. So what, I have to ask, like, what plants are you really digging right now? Like, what's the maybe physically and metaphorically?
Mm. For me personally, I have been working really deeply with both milky oat
Mm.
and seaweed.
Ah.
For milky oat is such a beautiful, beautiful plant medicine for the nervous system.
Yeah.
And I really need that extra support for my nervous
Mhm.
system, especially, for people who tend to be a bit more, say, sensitive. It it's really important to nourish that nervous system and to keep it receptive and not closed off.
Mhm.
And so, at the farm, the milky oats are just kind of starting to come um, into their perfect harvesting time.
Mhm.
And it's my favorite because my favorite preparation for milky oats is to do blended water infusion. So they're
Mm.
water based infusions, and you get this like this almost matcha green
Mm.
tea, and it just one little sip and I can feel the entirety of my nervous system just getting nice and juicy and back into a grounded and responsive state.
Mhm.
And, especially now with everything that's going on in this country, in this world, I've really been needing to give myself that extra care of tending to my nervous system and tending
Mm. Mhm.
um, to the practices that really help me ground
Mhm.
because it's so easy to get off my
Yeah.
center right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Well, I
And
don't know what you're
so,
talking about. I feel like everything is perfect right now. Oh my god.
yeah, you just
Oh
been,
my god.
yeah,
It's just like every day you wake up, you're just like, what fresh hell am I waking up to right now? Right? Like,
so
do I check
much.
the news? Nah. No, let's just let's just look at pictures of kittens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, now more than ever, I'm so grateful for the practices with plant
Mhm.
medicine,
Mhm.
for my ceremonial practices, for the rituals at my altar, because I don't know how I would be able to get through these times in a
Yeah.
good way
Yeah.
and to really be in a state that I can be grounded and responsive to what I need, what my family needs, what my community needs,
Mhm.
and how I can show up for them very specifically in these times.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I am so, so grateful for the practices that are in place in my life
Yeah.
because it keeps me sane
Nice.
and it keeps me clear
Yeah.
in my purpose.
Yeah. And
in my work.
Milky oat tops are part of that.
Yes, they're part of that.
I love the
Yeah.
flavor. I love to pick them
I know.
just like that little pop that they kind of do in your mouth.
Yeah.
It's like this, the flavor is amazing.
Yeah, they have such like a lunar
Mm-hmm.
influence to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that like gorgeous latex to
Yeah.
them. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, my
So
body just sings
just
for it.
tastes of, I don't
I
know, it
love
tastes
it.
of summer or something. It's just like this. I don't know. That's just so unique.
Yeah.
And then seaweed. I want to know about seaweed a little bit. Just tell me about like what you're doing with seaweed and um,
Sure.
oh, this is a big subject here. I love it.
Oh, so I'm a Washington kid,
Yeah.
you know, born and raised. And I grew up going out to the coast regularly. And so I've had kind of a lifelong love affair with seaweed,
Yeah.
really. You know, even as a kid, they're just so slimy and beautiful and strange.
Mm,
Like I just loved being in the tide pools
yeah. They
and being
dance.
around seaweeds.
I love the dance.
Yes.
Like they
Mhm.
just dance. It's beautiful. It's the most amazing thing to watch.
Yeah, and how many little creatures would
Oh,
be living underneath
yeah.
them
And how they
and
move with
yes,
how they move with as the seaweed dances, the fish also like
with
just
the tides
it's
and
just perfect. It's
yes.
perfect
Oh,
harmony. Yes, no.
yeah, that somatic medicine is so wonderful to connect with.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you know, coming back, you know, I lived abroad for many years, and I lived up in the Tetons for a few years, and I
Mhm.
came back to Washington State in about 2018.
Okay.
And and by that time, you know, I was pretty deep on my path in as an herbalist and, you know, within my ceremonial and ritual practices. And so it was really wonderful to come back to the state and to come back to seaweed and these tide pools
Mhm.
with this new kind of context and understanding
Mhm.
of medicine and of relationality um and my work as, you know, as an herbalist. And, you know, it was just so early on moving back, this deep love affair with seaweed just became something that was uh, kind of all encompassing. Like
Mm.
I always want to be down swimming with seaweed
Yeah.
and working with seaweed. And so it really, you know, for the last, I guess, uh, 6 years or so, just really taking on a very intimate study of seaweed on the spiritual and, you know, intellectual level. And so I've been teaching about seaweed medicine here locally for the last couple years,
Mm.
and you know, it's definitely one of the most beloved offerings that the farm uh, offers the community here. And it's been so wonderful because each workshop is really different.
Mhm.
And it just really speaks to how dynamic seaweed medicine really is.
Mhm.
And, you know, seaweed is just, it's so incredible and it's so enchanting. You know, it involved in salt water and with tidal fluctuations
Yeah.
and with currents. You know, this is a very stressful environment for these seaweeds to live in.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so it has created very unique bioactive and chemistry profiles within these plants that aren't found in any land plants.
Mm.
And seaweed is just, it's ancient. They're so, so ancient.
Right.
They really have been an intricate participant
Mhm.
in weaving ecosystems on this planet, both in the sea
Mhm.
and on land.
Yeah.
And not just beautiful ecosystems, but ecosystems that thrive and are resilient and have stood the test of time,
Mhm.
and all of the ways in which this planet has moved back and forth um, with its weather and everything,
Yeah.
and evolution in general.
Right. Well, I always think
So
I always think about that, you know, that first creature to come out of the ocean and to walk on land came from the seaweed, right? They were just like
yes,
they were with the seaweed and then they, you know, and I feel like and then that connectivity
right,
between the seaweed and then right to the trees kind of a thing. Like there's this
yeah,
connection between them, you
absolutely,
know, as we as a
yes.
species
So
is so important to us.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I love evolutionary biology.
Mhm.
It's a branch of science that I can really connect with because it does kind of bridge that, it's scientific, but it's also kind of spiritual because you're taking this huge macro lens of life on this planet and
Mhm.
seeing how they have woven together and
Yeah.
evolved
Yeah.
together.
Right.
And seaweed is such a perfect example of of what you can really understand through evolutionary biology because it's the green seaweeds or the chlorophytae genus that is specifically the mother and midwife of all land-based ecosystems of
Mhm.
flora that we see today.
Yeah.
Plants and trees, grass, whatever it may be, their ability to photosynthesize is because of seaweed and these, phytoplanktons that
Mhm.
evolved that capacity billions of years ago.
Yeah.
Just like it's mind
Right.
blowing.
Right.
And because the scope of seaweed is like literally billions of years
Mhm.
when you think of them in an
Yeah,
evolutionary
exactly.
context.
Exactly.
And it's really helpful, especially, kind of going back to these times when everything is just like, oh my God. It's like it's helpful to kind of touch into that medicine of seaweed, of that really broad
Yeah,
understanding. It
yeah.
helps to just kind of, okay, get us out of this really hyper focused, narrow, um, very agitated mindset of what these times have,
Mhm,
and just kind of like, okay, give us a little bit of space, give us a little bit of wider context.
mhm,
And I just love that about
mhm.
seaweed
Yeah,
because it's working on us on a lot of different
it's
levels.
so many different
So
levels, yes.
yeah.
I always think back on
And
seaweed, I always think back to this, I was on a, boat in the kelp forest, and there was
oh yeah.
a little kid, maybe 2, 3 years old, that was, you know, on this boat, and he was looking out over, and he said, "Look, mom, it's ocean trees."
Yes,
And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." Oh,
totally.
I always think of
I
them as
love
ocean
that.
trees.
Mhm. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they seaweeds provide very integral habitat along our
Mhm,
coastlines. They
mhm,
deacidify the ocean. I
mhm,
mean, they're incredible from an
mhm.
ecological standpoint.
Absolutely.
And what the medicine that they're offering the waters is also really amazing medicine that they offer humans as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And so, I love the seaweed medicine class that I teach. And there's such a huge scope
Mhm,
that you can take with seaweed medicine that it it really evolved into, over the last, yeah, it's been over a year now that I've been really co-creating this online course of seaweed medicine
mhm,
with local videographers and photographers. There's a lot of song and soundscapes and really beautiful tutorials and really thoughtful discourse that has come through. And it's a self-paced course, and there's three main modules, and it's coming together in this like very enchanting way and a very personal way as well,
mhm,
of like of blending all of those ways in which that you can understand seaweed medicine and both the ceremonial song as well as like the really hard facts of its phytochemicals
mhm.
and chemistry. So um yeah, it's been a labor of love, and I'm really looking forward to having this workshop released and out into the world. It's kind of been on its own timeline though.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that by this winter 2025 that it will be available to the
Great. That is
world.
so exciting. That is so
Thank
amazing.
you.
Well, thank you for doing that. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that and honoring that
Yeah.
because it has been seaweed is a enchanting and slippery mistress. You know, she's been one of my greatest teachers.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting how, you know, the medicine will want to come in a certain way.
Mhm.
And, you know, for whatever reason, I just won't be ready to receive it.
Hmm.
You know, she's like, you got some work to do, girlfriend, because you're not understanding it. I'm
Yeah.
not
Right.
understanding it.
Right.
And let alone being able to offer and convey that in a form that can be relayed to others.
Mhm.
And so that's why this has been really years in the making.
Yeah.
And I'm just I feel such a responsibility to
Mhm.
this work and a responsibility to seaweed and their medicine and being able to convey it in a way that honors and really respects how it offers its healing
Yeah.
to this planet and to us.
Wonderful. Well, I love that. I really, really do. Well, thank
So
you so much for this. I learned so much on this topic. It
me
was
too.
wonderful. It was really, really wonderful. Your wisdom is incredible, and what you're able
Oh,
to provide.
thank
I'm just so thankful that just for me, personally, that I'm able to just, have this conversation with you because it's really, I'm walking away from it, learning a lot about myself and learning about the ways in which I can improve upon myself. So thank you for that. I really, really appreciate it. So,
thank you so much, Tommy. I'm just so honored to be here, and
oh
thank you
yeah,
for those kind reflections.
yeah,
And yeah, this
yeah.
was a really, really wonderful and medicinal conversation with you.
Good, good. I'm so glad that you're happy as well. So we will probably hang out soon. I'm sure. We'll maybe can do this again because I
Okay.
feel like maybe a part two would be, incredible. So
Yeah, this was
yeah,
really fun. So
awesome,
I'm here for it.
awesome. Okay. Well, you have a wonderful day, and thank you again.
You too. Thank
Okay.
you.